Hey kids, it's King's Drummer, and in this video I'm going to share some concert stubs of shows I went to. I just watched Dereck Vaughn's video, and he did the same thing, and Dereck always tells the best stories, so I don't have stories as good as his, but it did inspire me to want to show my ticket stubs. I remember Rob from Boston, Panics 1960, a while ago he showed his stubs, and the shows that he has been to are killer, and he had a whole book of concert stubs, and I wish he would continue that again, because he had just got started doing that, and he's been to all the shows that just make my jaw drop. So I'm not going to show you every stub I had, because there's a big huge stack of ticket stubs like that, but I want to show you some of my favorite ones. And so let's get started. Right now I'll get the Genesis out of the way, for I'll shut up about that, because and I think I showed them once in a video before, but I'll show them again. This is Genesis in 1986, and this was in Oakland, California. Visible Touch Tour was the tour. That was a great show, and that's when I saw the whole Genesis Very Light show. Fantastic. Then I saw them again in 1992 for the We Can't Dance tour. There we go, Sacramento, California, outdoor football stadium. That was such a fun night. Absolutely loved it, and a great show. A lot of college kids came out to that one, sold out show, tons of people, sold out the whole place. It was amazing. Then Genesis gets back together in 2007, so I see them in San Jose for the Turn It On Again tour. And, you know, a great show, had a great time. It was fantastic. They put on a great stage show as well, with lights and big HD video screen, a little giant one. The only complaint I have about that show was, and they did a great mixture of old and new Genesis songs, but I swear, you know, they had lost a little bit of their step. Phil Collins, I guess, hadn't drummed in a while, and it sounded to me like he lost a little bit of his edge. Still a good drummer, still a badass drummer, but he had lost a little bit. So, but it was still a great show, and the songs were kind of slow tempo. They had dropped the keys down because of, you know, older man trying to sing something he sang when he was in his 20s. You know, you had to drop the keys, but anyway, still a great show. Just not as exciting as when I saw him in 86, 92, but still great. Van Halen, been to a lot of Van Halen shows, and this is Van Halen in San Francisco, July 1988 for the Monsters of Rock tour. It was Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica, and Kingdom Come, all-day show. And it was Jason Newsted's first tour as the bassist in Metallica, and it was the first time he played in San Francisco as a bassist in Metallica, and they world premiered a lot of songs from Injustice for All, like the song Injustice for All. They world premiered one. It was a good show, and it was our first time. At the time, this was July of '88. They hadn't even made videos yet, and so I wasn't that aware of them. So I remember when they came on stage, I said, "Oh, look at this band Metallica. I heard good things about them. Let's go up to the front and check them out." And dude, I got my ass kicked up there. As soon as the music started, it was my introduction to the mosh pit, and I remember someone just grabbed me, just headbutted me. I fell to the ground, and I wanted to get up and whoop some ass, but I had like everybody just stepping on me, and I had to fight. It felt like I had to fight out of the mosh pit for my life, and I never found out who headbutted me, but oh well. Another Van Halen show in 1991 at the Cal Expo Amphitheater. They had their For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was the tour, the album they were touring. The opening band was Alice in Chains. That was a badass show. And saw them again at Arco Arena in 1992. Same tour, just at the very end of the tour. Real good show. This is when they had Sammy Hagar in the band. Well, every time I've seen them, they've had Hagar, and it's always a great show. It's fantastic, and You know, Hagar was in great voice in all those shows, and the band sounded really tight. They were, I mean, I could tell they were drunk taking on the stage, but they still played really good. They didn't sound sloppy or anything like that. They sounded like a tight, well-rehearsed band. Unlike on this show, Van Halen, Cal Expo Amphitheater in 1995 on October 13th, which is Sammy Hagar's birthday. Normally he spends his birthdays at Cabo Wabo in Mexico, but they were touring, and they were touring the album Balance at this time. Opening band was Skid Row. I think the last tour of Skid Row for a while. And this is where you could tell it was Hagar's birthday. I think he had quite a few shots of tequila before even taking the stage, but not the tightest performance, but it was still a good show. Hagar was just celebrating his birthday, and what can I say? But it was still pretty cool, and real glad I went. Here's my Rush concert ticket stubs. This one was the first show I went to, Arco Arena in 1990 to see Rush. And the album at the time was Presto, and this concert was one of many concerts from Rush that changed my life. That's how into it I was. That was a great show. That was fantastic. I can't remember who opened, to be honest. They were still, it was Mr. Big, that's right. Mr. Big opened. And that was a great show. And I saw him come back again. Actually, no, this was the second time I saw Rush. This was the first time I saw Rush at Arco Arena. And Mr. Big opened. And then they came back to Sacramento, but this time they played at Cal Expo in June of 1990. Again with Mr. Big opening. And what was great about this show is it was general admission, open air amphitheater, so they're playing outside. I remember where we stood by the soundboard, the PA board. And Rush has all these rear projection things going on a screen behind the stage. They show movies and various things that tie in with the music. And since we kicked back this time by the PA board, we got to watch them load up the films in the projector, and it was pretty cool. And then watching them run the sound, it was pretty cool. And instead of getting crushed in the fronts, I decided to do that. And then a bunch of other times I saw Rush. I'm trying to get this in some kind of order, but it's really hard. Again in 1996. This was I believe this was the Vapor Trails tour. Yeah, an Arco Arena, Vapor Trails tour in 1996. They would go on a long hiatus after that. Some of their concerts. And then I'd see them again for the Snakes and Arrows tour in 2007. Great show. And this was the return of Rush in 2002. I'm sorry, these are all out of order. In Marysville, I saw Rush on the Vapor Trails tour in 2002. That was the return of Rush, and Neil Peart was back in the band. The band hadn't toured in like 6 years, so that was a great show. And the last time I saw Rush was in August of 2010 for the Time Machine tour at the Shoreline Amphitheater in Mountain View, which is basically in the Bay Area, and that was such a great show. They played moving pictures in its entirety live, and they were just so on it that night. An incredible light show. The fans really dug them. Great show. All right, what else? I want to show this one because this ticket stub means a lot to me. It's two stubs from the same show. I do like stand-up comedy, and this guy was my favorite stand-up comedian before he had passed away, and I was so glad I got a chance to see him in December of 1989. It was Sam Kinison at the Circle Star in San Carlos, and this was the most I've ever laughed ever in my life. I mean, he had my sides splitting. Sam Kinison, he came on stage holding two dog collars, and they're connected to two hot chicks in leather and in lingerie, and they were both fucking gorgeous. to find out later these two girls were sisters, and he ended up marrying one of the sisters. Then later we find out that he had an affair with the younger sister while he was engaged to the older sister, and that was nuts. But Sam Kinison, I thought, was just a great talent. One of the funniest guys I've ever seen, and I really was glad to have had the opportunity to see him live. And he passed away, I think, 4 or 5 years after this in a car accident in the desert. But, oh man, I missed him. I miss him so much because that was like one of the... I put him up there with Richard Pryor. Him and Richard Pryor are like the funniest stand-up comedians I've ever seen. All right, Eric Johnson tickets. The first time I saw Eric Johnson was October 11th, 1996. It was for the first G3 tour, which featured Joe Satriani, Eric Johnson, and Steve Vai. Opening this evening was Kenny Wayne Shepherd. And at the end of this night, all these guys got together for a big jam, and they were joined by Neil Schon on guitar. And this was in Concord, California, at the Concord Pavilion. And it was the first of the first night of the first tour of the G3 tour, which has been going on for a long time. I think they finally stopped doing G3 tours, but anyhow, I went to go to the next G3 tour in 1997, Sacramento, September 97. Eric Johnson wasn't on this one, so it was just Kenny Wayne Shepherd, Steve Vai, and Satriani. Robert Fripp actually opened this show, and I have a lot of respect for Robert Fripp because I know he's an amazing guitarist, but he is one, from what I heard from people who worked backstage, he was a huge prick. When he came on stage, all the house lights were on, and he didn't say hello to the crowd or acknowledge them or wave or smile. He walked in with just a wrinkled pants, a black coat, and a t-shirt underneath, all wrinkled, hair kind of fucked up, and had glasses on, just sat down in a chair and just started making echo sounds with his guitar. I never looked up, and just looked at his pedals and just kind of played around with his pedals and just kept making echoey sounds with his guitar. and when he would finish a song, he wouldn't say anything and just go into the next one. And then when he was done, he just got up and walked away. And people were like, and I heard backstage he was a real prick. He didn't want to talk to anybody, and he didn't want to be there. And he was pretty unfriendly and very rude to a lot of people backstage. So I remember hearing him on the radio station the next day. Everybody's telling how big of a prick Robert Fripp was. Eric Johnson once more in 1997, July 1997, in Sacramento, California, and get in focus here. This was a great show. He was promoting the album Venus Isle, and only seen him at the G3 tour. I finally got to see a full evening of Eric Johnson's music. He played for just over 2 hours. It was a great show. We had great seats right in front of the stage, third row back, third row and center stage, and great seats, great show. Came out with a big smile on my face. Had a great time. So there we go. And then I saw him at the Fillmore Auditorium in San Francisco, Eric Johnson, back in 2001. So January 2001. As you can see, the Dereck Trucks Band opened. Dereck Trucks Band was awesome. They were just awesome. I think they probably sounded better than Eric Johnson's band that night. But that was a good night of music. I left there, once again, with a big smile on my face. Eric Johnson always brings it live. And this is the show where I met Eric Johnson at the Fat Cat in Modesto. And that was just last summer. Right? Oh, no, this is the one... This was in 2007. I'm sorry, I'm getting my dates mixed up. But I did meet him at this show, but I only got to shake his hand and say hi to him as he was getting on his tour bus. I didn't really have a conversation with him. And this is the one that I saw him recently in Modesto at the State Theater. And the date on this one was January 27th, 2012. Eric Johnson. And that was a great show as well. I love this one. Earth, Wind, and Fire at the Arco Arena, 1998. The very last song, they came on with a full church choir and sang the song "Touch the World." It was a great show, and it was and Maurice White actually toured with them. And this is like the last year they had the big stage show with the pyrotechnics and lasers and stuff like that. And I think ever since then they kind of went to more of a low-key show. Some Dream Theater shows. This is Dream Theater during the Prog Nation tour, May of 2008. It doesn't say it on the ticket, but the opening band was Opeth. And I think, I can't remember the name of the other band before Opeth, and the very first band was Three. And another band after Three, and I can't remember their name right now for the life of me, and then Opeth and then Dream Theater. That was a great show, but I think there were more fans there for Opeth than there was Dream Theater. This is Queensryche and Sacramento, November 1991. Queensryche, and they were touring the album Empire, and they performed Operation Mindcrime in its entirety. That was fantastic. This show was fantastic. Warrior Soul was the opening band, and they got booed off the stage, but this was a great show. Another Dream Theater. This is Dream Theater at the Maritime Hall, May of 2008, May of 1998. Falling Into Infinity was the album they were touring. That was the first time I ever saw Dream Theater. I love this ticket stub though. Nice psychedelic ticket stub for the Maritime Hall, a concert venue that is no longer open. Too bad, because it was a cool place to see a show. And I love this show. Queensryche and Dream Theater all on one stage. Dream Theater opening, Queensryche headlining at the Cove in Sacramento. And when was this? 2003. So that was a really good show. Really good show. Fate's Warning actually opened that show. And I think on one song, Mike Portnoy jammed with him on the drums with Fate's Warning. That was good. Porcupine Tree at the Warfield. The year on this was August 2010. Porcupine Tree. Great concert. It was the first concert on a U.S. tour, and the band actually rehearsed that morning for the show, because since they all live in different parts of the world, the only time they can be together in one place is at soundcheck, so they rehearsed for the tour at soundcheck. And when I was in the parking lot trying to park my car, I could hear them rehearsing inside. So this one was a good show. I think Panic and Fall would get a kick out of this one, because she's a big fan of this band. This is Heart at the Hilton Theater in Reno, Nevada. I can't remember the year. July 2004. Heart, and the album they were promoting was Jupiter's Darling, and this was fantastic. And Wilson was in great voice that night. Great memories of this show. And then I went to a little club inside the Hilton. They had a little nightclub, and the band that was performing after the Heart show was Los Lonely Boys before they broke big. So I got to see Heart, then walked to a little club and saw Los Lonely Boys all in one night. That was a good night. Good night. A couple of stuff for Journey, because I like Journey. Journey at Harvey's Amphitheater in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Really great show. What I love about the Journey shows is I love the music of Journey. Great classic rock band, but a lot of babes at the Journey show. There's I swear to God, there's 5 to 6 hot chicks to every guy. And that was a fun show. That was fun. This is Journey at the Shoreline Amphitheater in September 2008. Opening band was Heart, even though it doesn't say that on the ticket. Heart opened, and Cheap Trick was the very first band. So Cheap Trick, Heart, and then Journey. This is with Journey's newer lead singer. I don't remember the guy's name, but they found him on YouTube. Neil Sean found him on YouTube, and Filipino guy, but sounds just like Steve Perry. Good voice, very good voice. My last video, I told a story about seeing the band Ozric Tentacles at the Fillmore. Well, here's the ticket. Here's the ticket stub for it. Ozric Tentacles, unfortunately, was the opening band. The headliner was Particle. Particle sucked. This was in 2006, and that whole argument between a whole argument on stage with the venue and the and the keyboard player of Ozric Tentacles. I mean, it almost turned into a fist fight. It was, oh man, they were pissed, and Ozric Tentacles hasn't been back to that venue since then. This is a fun show. October 2002, Les Claypool and the Frog Brigade. This was a fun show. The one thing I remember about this show was it was at a theater that sat maybe 3,000 people or maybe somewhere around there. And I remember we went downtown. Where we parked was about a block and a half, 2 blocks from the theater. We came out of the car, we could already smell weed. And the smell got stronger and stronger the closer we got to the theater. And once we were inside, it was like a fog storm in there. That is like the most weed I've ever seen smoked in one building at one time. It was just out of control. I want to show this one because it's funny. Cameo in concert, April 1987. The album they had out at the time was Word Up. And I think at this time, yeah, I was only 16 years old when I saw this show. So, 16 years old, going to see Cameo sing Word Up and Candy. That was fun times. That was a good show. Some miscellaneous shit here. Iron Maiden, back in 2003. Might as well say Sacramento, but it's a place called Marysville, but it's in the outskirts of Sacramento. That was a good show. It was them. It was Iron Maiden. It was Ronnie James Dio and Motorhead all in one show. This was a fantastic show. Taylor Dane. I took my girlfriend at the time. I took her to see her, and she was playing at Marriott's Great America. The place is called Redwood Amphitheater, but it was Marriott's Great America, and what's the name of that place? In Mountain View. And this was back in 1990. So Taylor Dane in 1990. I'm really showing my age in these ticket stubs. And I guess we'll end with a really good show. This one surprised me. It was in April of 1991 in Arco Arena in Sacramento. It was In Excess. And this was a fun concert. Really fun. Well, that's going to do it, folks. That's just some of my ticket stubs. I went to probably another 30 shows after that or so. and those are just the ones I kept the stubs for. There's a lot of shows I didn't even keep the stubs for. But that's going to do it for my King's Drummer concert experience. See you guys in the next video.